My main job is to help parents. I can help you with getting resources if your kids are having troubles in school. We've got books, we've got games, all different kinds of stuff. A lot of my things too is to get families in here together, so we do the family nights and we're doing the workshops. This is Jenny Powell, who's our literacy coach, so she's going to be the one who's going to do the workshop with you to show how we do reading and writing in the classroom. Okay.
Again, like she said, thank you guys for being here. It means a lot for us to have parents come in and be interested in what's happening in the classroom so that you can help your child better at home. So we really appreciate you guys being here today. And like she was saying, our main goal today is to give you guys a very general overview of how reading and writing instruction is happening in the classroom. So you've got a packet. Everything that we go over is going to be in this packet today. And you'll see at the top there's kind of an overview of what we're going to be doing. I'm going to give you an overview of the reading and writing workshop and what that is, what it means, what does it look like. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the ELA block for K through 2nd grade. Like, what do kids do during that time? And then I'm actually going to use these kiddos. They're going to be my students, and I'm actually going to teach a lesson so you can see what a lesson looks like. And then you'll be able to leave with a strategy that you can use with your kids at home whenever they're working on their reading at home. Okay, so that's kind of our plan for our time together today. So first thing that I wanted to go over with you guys is what is workshop? Like, we hear there's reading and writing workshop. What does that mean? What does it look like? And this kind of gives you a very good visual of what that means. This kind of shows you in a pie chart the different components of the workshop, but also the biggest chunk of time is spent doing, the kids are working, the kids are reading, the kids are writing. So if you look at both of these visuals, which chunk, and you actually do have this in your handout, it might be easier to see on your paper than it is to see up here. Which chunk is the largest when you look at these two visuals? Independent. It's the independent time. So the most time spent during the workshop are kids reading or kids writing. At the very beginning of workshop, the teachers will ask all the kids to come together as a whole class. The teacher is going to teach like a 10-minute lesson on some kind of skill or some kind of strategy, and then they send the kids off to go read or write on their own. And during that time, the teacher is going to go around and meet with a small group. They might meet with a kid one-on-one, but that's where they really get to know kids individually and figure out, what does this kid need? How can I help this particular child grow as a reader or a writer? Then at the end, you'll see for about 5 minutes, we all come back together again as a whole class, and we have a share time. And so that'll be where the teacher might point out something specific that a kid did really well that day, or a kid might share something they read or share a piece of writing or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of how the workshop model is broken down. But the big thing that I wanted you to know is that a huge chunk of that time, kids are reading, they are writing, and the teacher is meeting that kid where they're at, whatever that child specifically needs as a reader and writer. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. This is kind of the breakdown for the ELA block. For ELA, K through 2nd grade gets 120 minutes of ELA every day. And this is kind of the time breakdown for what that looks like in the classroom. And teachers may do this in a different order based on their class, but all of these components will be done in some way in those 120 minutes. A lot of times teachers will start off with an interactive read aloud, and that's where the teacher will read a story to students, and they will model for kids their thinking. So they will do think alouds, they'll talk out loud about what they're thinking to show kids how to handle comprehension strategies. Okay? Then they're going to go into their reading workshop, We now have phonics this year, that's brand new. We have new phonics units that have been added back in because we noticed that that was an area that was really lacking for kids. They were struggling to read and struggling to write and spell because that piece was missing. So we've added phonics back in this year. They'll have writing workshop, and then they do a shared reading. You might have been in classrooms before where you see those really big books. Those are what we will normally use for shared reading because that is the point of reading where we want kids to join in with us, and we're trying to practice for them what good reading sounds like. So that's where we really work on fluency. So we'll practice for kids, like when you're reading, you want it to sound this way. You want to use this expression when you read. You want to read at this speed. So that's where we get to show kids what reading should sound like. In the interactive read aloud, they can kind of get an idea, okay, when good readers are reading, this is what they're thinking in their head. This is how they're comprehending. So that's how all of that's laid out. Any questions about the ELA block? I added in some of this information just because I felt like this would be useful for you guys at home to have an idea of like, how much should my kids be reading? How much should they be writing? And this is generally what we go by here at school, and we try to give kids this much time at school to be reading and writing. This particular chart is focused on the reading, and you have this in your packet as well. This is really important to know for things like summer break, Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, spring break. When kids aren't in school, at home, we still want them to be getting this many minutes of reading at home so that we don't experience any kind of slide or any kind of loss or something like that. So for our pre-K and kindergarten students, especially now at this time of the year, beginning of the year, we're still like that 7-minute end. You know, we're just trying to get them to read for 7 minutes straight. But by the end of the year, they're going to be reading 20 minutes independently, on their own. They'll be able to sustain 20 minutes of reading. For first grade, 15 to 25. For second grade, 20 to 35. And you'll see that they also get to read with partners each day as well. For writing, this kind of gives you like very specifically the type of writing that they do, like how many sentences, how many lines, all that kind of good stuff. And you are more than welcome to look through that information. However, I really feel like looking at the student samples that are in your packet gives you a little bit clearer idea of what the writing looks like in kindergarten, first and second grade. This first page that you'll look at is a sample of a kindergarten piece of writing from last year that was in December. So that was like mid-year kindergarten. That's what writing looks like. So you'll notice there's just 2 lines. There's a really big box for them to draw pictures, and they're practicing labeling pictures. And they have like 1 sentence. 2 lines about 1 sentence at mid-year kindergarten. Then when we progress to mid-year first grade, you'll see the picture box gets a little bit smaller and the lines become more, okay? So we're trying to like gradually get them to write a little bit more each year. By the time they get to second grade, the picture box gets even smaller. And they add more lines, because by the time they get to third grade, they're going to be writing just regular notebook paper. So second grade, we're really trying to gradually get them to that point where they can just write on regular notebook paper. So again, that was like second grade mid-year. Any questions about that? Reading, writing, expectations, the volume of reading and writing. Okay, so what we're going to do next is I'm going to pull my fabulous students over And I'm going to demonstrate what a mini lesson looks like. So you'll remember during reading and writing workshop, at the very beginning, teachers bring all the kids together for about 10 minutes to teach them some kind of skill or strategy before they send the kids off to work independently. And they meet with kids one-on-one. So I'm going to show you what a mini lesson looks like. And the strategy that I teach them is something you could do at home as well. And then I'm going to pull one kid with me and demonstrate a strategy that's actually in your packet so that you can see what that particular strategy looks like so that maybe you can duplicate it with your child at home. If you look at this sheet in your packet, it says when a word is tricky. I'm going to be modeling this first strategy today with a student one-on-one so you can see what that looks like. And if those of you in the back can't see and you want to move up, that's fine too, whatever you need to do. You can bring your whole bag if you want to. All right, readers. I know that in your classes, you guys have been really working hard to think about all these different strategies that you know as readers and how you can use all of them at like one time, right? Like we know all these different strategies we can use as writers or as readers, and we know that sometimes we have to use more than one strategy, right? Especially if we come to a tricky word. So I want you to talk with a partner real fast and tell your partner, like, what are some strategies that you know as a reader?
One of my strategies that I know as a reader is to take a
What's the strategy that you guys use?
I just
You come to a word you don't know what it is.
sounded out and I'll speak that one.
Yeah. What's something you do, Trey? What's something testy?
I really repeat
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah. So I heard sound it out, I take a sneak peek, sometimes I'll skip it and go back, try to figure out what it is. So you guys already have really good strategies that you use as readers, and sometimes we have to use all of those to try to figure out a tricky word sometimes. So today what I want to do is I want to show you guys how sometimes we can look at pictures and try to use pictures to help us figure out what a word might be, and we'll think about what would make sense here, okay? And sometimes we have to look at the letters to help us figure it out. So I'm going to show you what that might look like. I have this book called Katie Woo. Who has the blue? And I'm going to show you guys a tricky word that I came across and how I'll use the pictures to try to help me figure out what it might be. Okay, let's see if we can do that. I feel hot too, Katie moaned. Her mom took her, I wonder what that might be. I can look at the picture to try to help me. I see that it starts with a T, so I have to think about what would make sense here. Based on this picture, I see it starts with a T. What do you think it could be?
Temperature.
I feel hot too, Katie moaned. Her mom took her temperature. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, you got it right. So I could look at the picture. I see the mom's holding a thermometer, right? She's like feeling her head. Sometimes when you're sick, you don't feel good, your mom will come up to you and like feel your head, trying to take your temperature, see if you're too hot or whatever the case might be. So I know that that picture really helped me to figure out that's probably temperature, okay? Let's take a look at another page. All right, I'm kind of taking a peek at this picture. I notice what she's doing. Looks like she's looking, you know, laying down in bed. Her eyes are closed. Talk with your partner about what you think's going on in that picture. What do you think Katie Woo is doing? do you think Katie might be doing?
No. Like it's pig she's going to sleep.
What do you think she might be doing, Trey?
She might be cold.
Maybe cold, yeah.
Be having a cold.
Let's see if we can figure this out. Katie fell asleep and had a bad dream. She was a polar bear who lost her fur. Maybe if I look at the first two letters, I look at the picture, I see she's laying in bed, she's got this like bubble cloud above her head. What do you think that might be?
Dream.
Katie fell asleep and had a bad dream. She dreamed she was a polar bear who lost her fur. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that match the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yes. Got it right. Thank goodness. So, readers, whenever we come to tricky words that we're not sure of, we can use the pictures to help us try to figure out what it might be, and then we can look at the first few letters and say, would that make sense? Would that work? Does that match up? We can try that, right? Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to get one of your books that you have. Looks like everybody brought a book here with them. And I want you to go ahead and begin reading, and when you come to a tricky word, see if you can use the pictures to help you try to figure out what the word might be. Oh no. So what could you do instead? Yeah, you could do something like that. Let's see. Yeah. That's true. So we might have to try something else, right? Yeah. Okay. Come see me, sweetie. Y'all can go ahead and keep reading.
okay.
Alright, so that part is the actual mini lesson part. At this point, teachers would send kids off to go read on their own, and then the teacher's going to go and meet with kids one-on-one or in small groups, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to work with Layla one-on-one, and I'm going to give her a strategy for her to use. A lot of times, teachers will set individual goals for every single student in their classroom, and they'll have goal sheets. And every time the teacher meets with that kid and gives them a new strategy, they'll add it to their goal sheet. You'll see Layla, this is something that her teacher has already started for her. It says, my goal is, and my strategy is. So this is something that Layla can have all the time. And we're going to talk more about this in a second. This is the strategy that I said I was going to demonstrate from your packet. All right, Layla. So, you have a really interesting situation, huh? Because you're reading a book, there's no pictures. So, you can't really use pictures to help you figure out tricky words, right? Yeah. So, let's think of something else that we could do. Whenever we come to a tricky word, we might cover up the whole word, read the sentence, and then go back and think, what would make sense here? Right? Because we know that reading is supposed to be all about making sense. We don't want to read it if it doesn't make sense, right? Yeah. So, read for me a little bit. Let's see if we come to a tricky word.
Abby entered all the words and brought down on her deck as usual. And signed a big. That was when she said, especially when we and I don't think she was.
Okay. Pause there for a second. Can you tell me what you did to try to figure that out? Yeah? Okay, keep going. Close. So that's a tricky word, right? Okay, so let's cover it up. And let's think about what would make sense here. Let's go back and reread it from the beginning and let's think what would make sense. I suppose you understand what it's saying. Abby said, it starts with an S. What do you think would make sense there? You've read the other chapters, so do you think Abby's like a nice person normal? Yeah. Do you think that she's angry? No. So what do you think could make sense here if we cover it up? Suppose you understand what it's saying. Abby said, what do you think is a word that starts with an S that would make sense? Yes, good job. Yep, you got it. Sourly. Okay, keep going. You can read the rest of it. Alright, so that kind of gives you like a real quick overview of what Reading Workshop is going to look like in the classroom. They're going to bring kids together, show them some kind of skill, strategy, send them off to go work independently, and then I'm going to go and meet with kids one-on-one to try to figure out what's their goal, what do they need help with, what kind of strategies can I give this particular child to meet this particular child's needs. Any questions about the workshop model or anything else in general you can think of? So whenever I was working with Layla one-on-one, I was trying to do this cover up the word, read the sentence again, what would make sense strategy with her. That's a really good strategy to use with kids because you're always wanting to reinforce that reading should make sense. You know, sometimes kids will read and they get to a word they don't know and they see that it starts with a P and they're like, pond, and they keep reading even though that doesn't make sense at all. And we don't want kids to keep going. We want them to understand if something doesn't make sense, we need to stop. And we got to go back and try to figure it out. Okay? So that's an easy strategy that you can use with any grade level because you want them to understand it really needs to make sense whenever you're reading. Okay? There's also some other different strategies on here that you can try with kids. On the very back, this is some questions you can ask kids when you're reading with them because kids like to choose books that are too hard for them. And that's fine when they're reading with someone else. And so this kind of gives you an idea of questions that you can ask your kid whenever you're reading those books. There's some fiction at the top, and then if they're reading some nonfiction books, these are types of questions you can ask also. One thing that I did mention whenever I was working with Layla, I showed you guys that little goal sheet. Every teacher is going to set reading and writing goals for each individual child, things that they need to grow in. We held off on giving you the sign-in sheet because if you would like a copy of your child's goal sheet, and a lot of teachers are like in the process of creating those now, but if you'd like a copy of it so that you know what goal they're working on and what strategies the teacher is giving them in class, then you have an area on the sign-in sheet where you can mark that off. And as soon as the teacher sets goals and gives your kids strategy, we'll make a copy of it and send it home so that you guys can have that as well. Also on the sign-in sheet, there's a spot where you can mark if you'd like the teacher to contact you, or if you want to get resources from Ms. Shear, there's a space where you can mark that as well. She's got lots of books that you're more than welcome to check out. I think you guys already do that all the time. Snap words, which are sight words. We call them snap because we want kids to know them in a snap, like really, really fast. She's got lots of those like snap word cards if you want to practice that with your kids at home. That'll help build their reading as well. So any resource like that, you can just make a check mark here and get some stuff from her as well. Okay. So I'm going to start trying to send these around. Make sure you guys get that before you leave.